For centuries, comets have been feared as omens, messengers of change whose sudden appearance in the heavens always seem to coincide with upheaval on Earth. Ancient chronicles describe them as sky torches or celestial serpents, glowing trails of fire that brought with them famine, wars, and trembling ground. Modern science, of course, stripped away those fears, reducing comets to icy wanderers, fragile bodies of dust and frozen gases that flare when they near the sun. But sometimes the universe reminds us that our certainty is only an illusion. In late September, the cosmos delivered a sequence of events too precise, too violent, and too interconnected to dismiss as coincidence. First came twin novas, stars exploding in the far reaches of our galaxy, showering the solar system with waves of high-energy radiation. Then came Comet SWAN, glowing brighter than models predicted, as if awakened from some dormant state. And almost immediately after, the sun itself erupted with the strongest solar flare in months, a 6.4 M-class event that hurled a massive coronal mass ejection directly into the comet's path. The timing was uncanny, the geometry exact, and the implications terrifying. For what we may be witnessing is not a random chain of events, but a resonance, a cosmic dialogue between stars, comets, and the very heart of our solar system. And Earth, caught in the middle, is part of the story whether we wish it or not. On September 26th, Comet C 2025, R2 SWAN erupted in an unexpected outburst that left astronomers scrambling to explain what they were seeing. In just a matter of hours, its brightness surged well beyond predictions, climbing from the dimness of telescopic obscurity to a glow that amateur astronomers could capture with modest instruments, and perhaps soon visible even to the naked eye under dark skies. To understand how shocking this was, one must remember that comets are volatile but fragile. They often flare briefly when internal pockets of gas burst through the surface, but such outbursts usually fade as quickly as they appear. SWAN's brightness, however, did not recede. It held, sustained for days, as though some new process had been triggered deep within its icy core. Even more extraordinary was the scale of its presence. Its tail stretched more than 2.5 degrees across the night sky, 5 times the width of the full moon. This was not the faint whisper of a dying wanderer. This was the roar of a giant structure, alive with dust, ice, and plasma, expanding in defiance of expectations. And the timing of its eruption was impossible to ignore. Just days earlier, novas had exploded in the galaxy, bathing the solar system in X-rays and gamma rays. Now, suddenly, a comet near Earth's orbit flared in brilliance, as though answering that cosmic signal. Less than 2 days later, the sun unleashed its own fury. On September 28th, sunspot group 4232 erupted in a 6.4 M-class flare, the most powerful burst of solar energy since June. With it came a coronal mass ejection, a massive wave of charged plasma hurled outward at millions of miles per hour. Unlike many such ejections, this one was not aimed at Earth but at a far stranger target, Comet SWAN, still glowing fiercely after its outburst. This alignment was no accident of chance. Solar storms of this magnitude typically wreak havoc when they strike planets, disrupting power grids, blacking out satellites, and igniting auroras in skies thousands of miles from the poles. But when they strike comets, the results can be unpredictable, even surreal. A coronal mass ejection can rip away a comet's tail, cause it to ripple like a flag in a storm, or paradoxically brighten it even further as its gases are ionized by the incoming blast. Already, astronomers have observed these effects countless times, most famously when solar storms severed the tails of earlier comets, leaving them adrift in strange, truncated shapes. Now, with SWAN's enormous plasma tail in the crosshairs of the sun's fury, the world waits to see what will happen. Will the comet fracture and collapse under the stress? Or will it flare again, brighter and larger, feeding on the sun's violence like a spark to dry tinder? What makes these events even more alarming is their timing. Comet SWAN will make its closest approach to Earth on October 21st, passing within only 0.25 astronomical units, close enough to be visible to the naked eye under favorable conditions. But that same day, a much stranger alignment will take place. Interstellar Object 3 I Atlas will be in superior conjunction, positioned directly behind the Sun from Earth's perspective. This means that on October 21st, Earth, the Sun, the Moon, Comet SWAN, and Three-Eye Atlas will all share a geometric relationship of unusual precision, lined up within the ecliptic plane, the very plane where the solar wind flows and where electromagnetic currents shape the destiny of planets. Both SWAN and Three-Eye Atlas are massive plasma structures, their comas swelling in size, each already responding to solar storms with unpredictable behavior. To have them aligned simultaneously, feeding off the same solar wind, is unprecedented. Scientists warn that this configuration could set off a cascade of interactions, amplifying solar activity, destabilizing magnetic fields, and perhaps even influencing Earth's fragile systems in ways we cannot yet predict. And with every day that passes, the resonance between Sun, comet, and interstellar object grows stronger, as though October 21st has been marked as a climax waiting to unfold. Skeptics will insist this is nothing more than chance, that novas, comets, and solar flares are independent events with no connection to one another. But the pattern is difficult to ignore. In 2017, the interstellar visitor Oumuamua reached its perihelion on September 9th, the very day the Sun released two of the strongest flares of that solar cycle. A day earlier, Mexico was devastated by a magnitude 8.2 earthquake, one of the strongest in its recorded history. Time and again, the arrival of comets and interstellar objects in the inner solar system seems to coincide with violent surges in solar and terrestrial activity. And now, with Comet SWAN, we see the same story repeating: novas exploding, comets brightening, the Sun responding with its most powerful flare in months, and Earth watching from the center of it all. The truth may be stranger than science has been willing to admit. Perhaps these visitors do not simply reflect solar energy. Perhaps they trigger it, forming connections and circuits that ripple outward through the heliosphere, binding stars, planets, and comets in a web of unseen influence. If that is true, then what we are seeing is not the end of the story, but the opening chapter of a much larger one. The real question is, what comes next? When most people imagine a comet, they picture a glowing core with a faint tail stretching delicately behind it. But SWAN's tail is no ordinary ribbon of dust. At more than 2.5 degrees wide on the sky, it spans 5 times the apparent size of the full moon, a structure so vast that it cannot simply be ignored as a passive streamer. Its tail is alive with ionized gas, a plasma current constantly shaped by the solar wind. And when a coronal mass ejection strikes such a structure, it does not simply sweep past it. It rips, tears, and reconnects magnetic fields in violent bursts of energy called tail disconnections. In ordinary comets, these events create fleeting ripples that vanish into the void. But with SWAN's colossal scale, every storm that collides with it becomes an amplifier, a resonator that feeds the energy back into the heliospheric current sheet, the vast electromagnetic plane that also envelops Earth. In other words, every solar storm hitting SWAN doesn't just reshape the comet. It changes the conditions of the solar system itself, sending pulses through the very fabric of plasma that surrounds our planet. Its tail is no longer just decoration. It is a conduit, and it may already be channeling chaos toward us. Even as SWAN glows brighter under solar fire, the true danger may still lie ahead. The flare that erupted on September 28th came from sunspot group 4232, a magnetic scar sprawling across the surface of the Sun. At the moment of the eruption, it was aimed at SWAN, its energy directed away from Earth. But the Sun rotates. In less than a week, that same sunspot will turn toward us, aligning Earth in its crosshairs. And the group is not quieting down. X-ray data reveals that it is growing more unstable, releasing smaller flares like tremors before a quake. If one of these eruptions escalates into an X-class flare, the most powerful kind, then Earth could face a geomagnetic storm capable of crippling satellites, power grids, and communication systems, and the timing could not be worse. On October 21st, as SWAN aligns with Earth and Three-Eye Atlas, that same sunspot group may unleash its fury again, throwing a lightning bolt into a storm that is already brewing. This is the scenario scientists fear most: a perfect storm of solar fury amplified by 2 massive plasma comas at the very moment Earth is trapped between them. For many astronomers, the sight of Comet SWAN's flare and the Sun's violent reaction brings back memories of another visitor, the interstellar object Oumuamua in 2017. Unlike SWAN, Oumuamua never grew a glowing tail, and yet its arrival coincided with extraordinary solar and terrestrial events. On September 8th, one day before its perihelion, Earth was struck by a magnitude 8.2 earthquake in Mexico. On September 9th, the Sun erupted with two massive flares, the strongest of that solar cycle. At the time, few connected these events, dismissing the alignment as mere chance. But now, as SWAN's flare is followed almost immediately by novas, quakes, and solar storms, the pattern is harder to ignore. It suggests that interstellar and near-solar objects do not simply pass silently through our system. They stir it, amplifying energies we barely understand. If Oumuamua was the whisper, then SWAN is the shout, brighter, larger, and more volatile, caught in a dance with a sun that seems determined to answer. And this time, Earth is watching from inside the circle, bracing for the consequences. All of these events are not isolated fragments. They are parts of a larger crescendo, building toward a single date. On October 21st, Comet SWAN will make its closest approach to Earth, glowing brighter than ever before. On that same day, interstellar object 3I Atlas will align with the Sun in superior conjunction, hidden behind its glare but still expanding its enormous coma. The Moon will be new and dark, joining the same plane, and Earth will sit caught between all of them, within the heliospheric current sheet where electromagnetic forces are strongest. Astronomers call this geometry rare, but rare hardly captures the weight of its meaning. It is a convergence, a stacking of cosmic forces into a single moment unlike anything seen in recorded history. Already we have seen novas erupt, solar flares lash out, and the Earth tremble under unexplained quakes. If these are only the opening notes, then what happens when the full orchestra plays? Will we see storms that black out continents, oceans that rise in resonance, or perhaps something even stranger, as comets and stars join in a rhythm that pulls Earth into its harmony? Whatever the answer, the convergence is coming, and the cosmos has already begun its overture. As Comet SWAN's glow continued to expand, researchers began to notice a faint but eerie synchronization unfolding on Earth itself. Seismographs monitoring fault zones across the globe revealed a recurring micropulse, a subtle vibration echoing through the crust every 84 to 85 seconds. At first, it was dismissed as background noise, but when stations across South America, Asia, and even the Mediterranean all recorded the same rhythm, doubt began to erode. It was as if the planet itself was resonating with a beat coming not from within, but from the heavens. Resonance, scientists warn, is the most dangerous of forces, the same principle that topples bridges when the wind strikes in perfect rhythm or shatters glass with nothing but sound. If Earth is beginning to vibrate in step with a comet's pulse, then the Venezuelan quakes we've already witnessed may be only the first tremors of something much larger, a prelude to a global event written not in Earth's faults, but in the crimson glow of the sky. Above our heads, Earth's magnetic shield, the invisible barrier that protects us from the sun's deadly radiation, has also begun to falter. Magnetometers in Canada, Japan, and Northern Europe recorded sudden spikes of energy, not the smooth waves of a typical geomagnetic storm, but violent jolts timed suspiciously close to SWAN's flaring episodes. Auroras descended unusually far south, painting skies where they were rarely seen, while airline pilots reported navigation errors and radio blackouts. Satellites drifted momentarily off course, their systems overwhelmed by bursts of charged particles that seemed to arrive without warning. What makes these anomalies so unnerving is that they occurred without the usual signs of a direct solar storm hitting Earth. Instead, they appeared as if triggered remotely, echoes of disturbances taking place in the vast plasma cocoon of Comet SWAN. Earth, it seemed, was not being struck directly, but was still responding, as though caught in the same web of currents flowing between the comet and the sun. While Earth reeled with anomalies, Mars became the next witness. Orbiters circling the red planet reported auroras far brighter than expected, streaks of light dancing across skies too thin to sustain such displays under normal conditions. Even more alarming were the seismic readings. Instruments left behind by NASA's InSight mission captured Marsquakes that seemed to coincide with the comet's pulse, subtle vibrations in the crust of a planet that should be geologically quiet. Unlike Earth, Mars has no oceans to amplify the rhythm, no magnetic shield to buffer the storms. Yet even in its barren silence, it trembled under the influence of the same interstellar visitor. If Mars, with its fragile systems, is already resonating with SWAN's disturbances, then Earth, far more complex and dynamic, may be only beginning to feel the first ripples of what's to come. Mars, in this sense, is not just another planet in line. It is a preview, a warning written in red dust and trembling stone. When the pieces are viewed together, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Novas exploding in perfect synchrony with terrestrial quakes. A comet flaring far beyond predictions, its coma stretching like a banner across the heavens. The sun lashing out with storms of fire, as if engaged in a dialogue with the visitor. Earth humming faintly beneath our feet, oceans shifting strangely, auroras flaring where they should not. Mars answering with its own trembling. These are not isolated coincidences. They are movements in a larger symphony, a resonance that seems to link stars, comets, and planets into a single interconnected rhythm. And the date looms ever closer, October 21st, when Comet SWAN and Three-Eye Atlas align with the Sun and Earth in a convergence that may amplify this resonance to unimaginable levels. What we are seeing now, novas, quakes, and storms, may be only the opening bars of the overture. The crescendo has yet to come. By early October, scientists monitoring the world's oceans began to notice anomalies that defied explanation. Deep-sea buoys in the Pacific registered sudden changes in pressure, as if invisible waves were surging through the deep without storms or seismic triggers to explain them. Tide gauges along the Atlantic coast recorded brief but measurable fluctuations in sea level, out of rhythm with the moon's pull. Even more disturbing were the microseisms, faint, low-frequency vibrations caused by ocean waves striking coastlines, which began to appear in patterns eerily close to the same intervals observed in SWAN's pulses. Fishermen reported unusual bioluminescent blooms glowing across the surface, waves flickering like liquid lightning in sync with the comet's beat. The oceans, which govern Earth's climate and weather, seem to be picking up the same resonance already recorded in the crust and magnetosphere. If the seas themselves are now vibrating in harmony with a celestial visitor, then they may act as amplifiers, spreading chaos not locally but globally, delivering the comet's rhythm into storms, currents, and weather systems that shape life itself. The sun, far from quieting, seemed determined to intensify the drama. By October's first week, more than 170 sunspots scarred its surface, each one a cauldron of magnetic instability. Sunspot Group 4232, the same that had hurled a CME at SWAN, rotated fully into Earth's line of sight, and solar telescopes recorded an almost continuous stream of M-class flares. Each flare unleashed a storm of particles racing outward, shaking the heliosphere like thunder rolling through the void. Yet the strangest detail was this. Each time the sun erupted, SWAN's coma seemed to react, rippling, brightening, almost as though it were responding to the solar outbursts. This was no passive lump of ice and dust being battered by solar storms. It behaved like a participant, a conductor in a dialogue with the star itself. And as the sun grew angrier, the comet only swelled larger, brighter, more volatile, its plasma tail twisting into chaotic spirals that stretched millions of kilometers across space. Humanity found itself watching a duel between two giants, our star and a crimson wanderer, with Earth sitting directly downstream of their battle. The deeper astronomers and historians dug, the more parallels emerged from the past. Ancient Chinese records spoke of red broom stars appearing before the ground split open in earthquakes. Babylonian tablets described fiery torches in the sky that heralded the collapse of cities and floods of rivers. In medieval Europe, chroniclers wrote of bloody serpents trailing across the night before famine and plague. And in the New World, the Aztecs feared cometary apparitions, linking them to cycles of destruction that overturned empires. For centuries, these accounts were dismissed as superstition, the fearful imagination of civilizations that lacked science. But in the crimson glow of SWAN, flaring in rhythm with novas, quakes, and storms, those ancient voices sound less like myth and more like testimony. Perhaps they had witnessed the same resonances we now see, and they understood in their own language what modern instruments are only beginning to reveal, that comets are not silent visitors but catalysts, amplifying forces that link heaven and earth in dangerous symphonies. And if history is repeating itself, then what awaits us may be the same calamities those civilizations feared most. As all of this unfolded, the institutions we rely upon to guide us grew quieter. NASA's updates about Comet SWAN became sparse, stripped of alarming language, describing the outbursts as variability and the solar storms as routine interactions. ESA's reports followed the same path, speaking of expected dynamics, even as amateur astronomers captured images of the comet's tail disconnecting, twisting, and glowing unnaturally bright. Seismic reports that once appeared instantly in public databases began arriving hours late, with key data missing. Magnetospheric bulletins were shortened, auroral activity downplayed. Behind the scenes, however, leaks painted a different picture of classified meetings, emergency conferences, and suppressed data. Silence became the official response, but it was a silence that spoke volumes. If there were truly nothing to fear, there would be no reason to hide the numbers, no reason to soften the words. The absence of truth was its own kind of confirmation, that those with the clearest view of the sky were also the ones most afraid of what it meant. And so humanity watches in uncertainty, gazing at a crimson beacon that pulses above, knowing the story is far from over. From the moment Comet SWAN flared into sudden brilliance, the universe has felt different. Two novas erupted almost in unison. The sun answered with its most violent flare in months. Earth's crust trembled in rhythm, and even the oceans whispered with strange vibrations. These are not coincidences strung together by superstition. They are movements in a cosmic symphony, building measure by measure into something larger, something that ties together distant stars, wandering comets, and the fragile systems of our own planet. The deeper we look, the clearer the pattern becomes. SWAN is not a passive object. It reacts to solar storms, it amplifies them, and it resonates with Earth itself. The ancients were not wrong when they feared crimson comets. They were recording the same phenomena we now see through the most advanced instruments in history. Their words, once dismissed as myth, now read like warnings written across millennia. And still, the silence of today's institutions grows louder, their reassurances thinner, their omissions heavier. The truth is not being hidden because it is meaningless. It is being hidden because it is too disruptive to confront openly. And so, as October 21st approaches, when Comet SWAN aligns with Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and interstellar 3I Atlas, we stand on the threshold of a convergence that has never been recorded in human history. What we have witnessed so far, novas, flares, quakes, and auroras, may be only the overture. The crescendo is yet to come. Perhaps SWAN is not just a comet, but a catalyst, a conductor drawing stars and planets into a shared rhythm. If that is true, then Earth is no longer just an observer. We are already part of the song. And the most terrifying question of all is not whether this resonance will grow stronger, but how long we can endure it before it reaches its final note.